right. This week, we're talking about performance issues. So, in regards to that, what are some common performance issues that you come across?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I mean, we get called in for a lot of different performance things, and um, sometimes there are performance issues with a vendor supplied application, and sometimes there are performance issues with in-house applications, and it usually kind of falls into one of those two areas. And if we have a client where they have their own in-house application, where we have their development team that's built it, it's usually nice, a little bit nicer because we're able to go and share and teach with them how to do the things to make the queries run faster and able to let them make those changes in the application when they're needed. Other times when we're dealing with vendor supplied applications, we run into like limitations, like certain vendor applications won't let you add an index in the database. But then other times we work with vendors where we found an application that was performing really, really poorly. We added a half dozen indexes and showed how much faster their application could work. And the client sent that back to the vendor, and the vendor ended up including those in their application going forward. So kind of the two different areas are that in-house versus vendor applications. But what we see between the two of those is pretty common, where we see a lack of indexes or a misunderstanding or misuse of indexes. And that can be how the indexes are created or how they're even with indexing hints and things like that. But that's one of those things that we can help with quite a bit. We see a lot of functions in the where clause. And what this means is instead of saying like where column A equals something, it's actually a function call on it, like where length or where date add or something like that. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done on those. We'll cover that a little bit later. We oftentimes see excessive use of cross apply or even outer apply. It's a good feature, but when it's used too extensively or used without really understanding how many rows are being impacted, it can be really expensive on the performance front. On that same point, we see a lot of correlated subqueries where you've got queries that are being run over and over and over again, or subqueries that are being run over and over and over again inside of your queries. And then the common thing we see too, normally the first thing we look at is a lot of locking and blocking. And additionally, we oftentimes see that somebody's having performance issues with their database, and it turns out they haven't been doing proper maintenance for some time. So that's kind of the general stuff that we typically see. And then there's a lot of just kind of not so much mainstream type things that we see that we'll deal with as well.
Yeah.